Why would it do that? It's not because it's mean. It's just that the information may be in your work, may be there. The question is whether the machine can find it, can connect it, and can use it. Welcome to InnoviU, the EU Project Chronicles. This episode is built around selected excerpts, clips, from a live workshop that I delivered on how LLMs are changing the evaluation of professional work. The question we analyze is not whether artificial intelligence will eventually replace human evaluators. That's not it. No, we looked at a more immediate question: what happens when an LLM retrieves, screens, summarizes, or compares your work even before the human decision maker sees it? Your complete work may never reach that person. What reaches the decision maker in many cases today, as we'll see, may be just a compressed machine representation in which your claims disappear, your evidence becomes disconnected, your decisive facts lose their context, your value is not there. The value of your work is suppressed. Today, we'll look at that hidden evaluation chain and at what you can do about it and how you can make good use of it. So the point is that AI doesn't always replace the evaluator. It often just shapes the version of your work that reaches the evaluator. Because in many different settings, evaluators are using AI, LLMs, to screen the materials they are evaluating, or in other forms, using those LLMs to. Now, the strength of the evidence is not identical across every use case. It is strongest in academic peer review. There's a lot of evidence there. It is emerging, even though still contested, in the field of grant evaluation. And it's already very much operational in areas such as website retrieval, legal document review. So, throughout this episode, I will try to distinguish between documented use, experimental evidence, and strategic inference. So, let's begin with academic papers. Help them do the work of evaluation, of choice, of grading, of scoring. Um, the thing is, AI does not judge what you meant. AI just manages what it extracts. It's a cold reader. If it doesn't read the information you want, it doesn't matter. It goes on and just works with what it got from your work. And it may not be what you wanted. When AI enters the chain, your work is no longer judged only by what it contains. It is judged by what the machine manages to extract from it. Uh, a weak extraction can just turn a great piece of work into a weak verdict. Grant evaluation, another use case, is a less mature and therefore more ambiguous case. There is evidence of AI assisted screening and experimental scoring, but not enough evidence to claim that every funder or every evaluator uses LLM or uses the LLM in the same way. At the same time, institutions including the NIH, the UKRI, and the European Research Council have introduced restrictions on reviewers delegating the analysis or summary of the confidential proposals to external AI systems. There are those restrictions. And those restrictions do not prove universal use, but they prove there is use. They do show that informal AI assistant is considered sufficiently plausible and consequential to require governance. In the end, it's all about the required governance. The immediate risk is opacity. Applicants often cannot know whether AI has entered the evaluation chain and in what role and with which safeguards. So we have to take it into account anyway. So let's see some examples of what I'm saying. Let's look first at academic papers. We have this growing body of evidence showing that AI is already inside peer review. And it's safe to say that it's already shaping what human reviewers write. And the results, as all the research shows, the result is not the same. It's not indifferent. It really changes the outcome. So the settings are different. A peer reviewer is not a purchasing agent. Purchasing. Sorry, my English doesn't get any better, does it? A grant proposal is not a contract. A website is not an academic paper. There are differences, but the underlying problem is actually similar. Human readers routinely infer relationships that are not explicitly stated in the text. LLMs may fail to preserve those relationships during the retrieval, the segmentation, and the summarization. That's the main issue here. The problem here, the real risk is not hallucinating law. The real risk is missing the clause because the text can become somehow dense. You know that if you read one of those texts. And that can lead the LLM to miss important information. So the retrievals actually sets the ceiling for reasoning. A perfect argument is useless if the system the LLM that's going to read it, retrieves the wrong provision, the wrong ideas. Okay, I need to clarify this. LLMs do not get stories is deliberately provocative. Of course, a language model can process a narrative. The problem is that it does not reliably reconstruct every implicit relationship in the way that an experienced human reader does. A human may infer that a number supports a claim introduced several pages earlier. A machine may return the claim and the number as two unrelated fragments. The risk is not storytelling itself, of course. The risk is hiding the evaluation logic inside the story. What can be good for the human brain, putting the information in a story, may not be good for an LLM extraction. So the question here is LLMs don't get stories. When you write for a human, the best way to make sure the human gets the information you want it to learn is to put that information in a story. That's how our brains are wired. If you manage to put the information you want in a story, you'll capture the attention, and your readers' brains will make the connection, and the information will be stored in your readers' memories. That works fine with humans. It does not work that way with LLMs. LLMs need structure and need repetition. They need boring writing. When you write for humans, you try not to bore them to death, right? You try to be interesting. So you keep using different techniques to make sure that you capture their attention and don't get them to sleep. You don't repeat yourself. Well, if you're writing for an LLM, you better stick to the same word again and again and again and repeat it. I'm not saying storytelling is bad. I'm saying that implicit logic is a big risk. If you're writing stories with implicit logic that we often use when you write for humans, you're taking a risk. The LLM may not get that logic. It will probably not get that logic. So there's a difference, and this is my point. There's a difference between human reading an LLM extraction. The human reader accumulates context, it interprets intentions, it tolerates ambiguity. Actually, that all the policial, the crime novels are based on the ambiguity. Many important work, literature is based on ambiguity. Well, that's not a good idea for LLMs. LLMs just segment text, retrieve patterns, depend a lot on the prompt and the context that are used, and will very likely lose some implicit relationships. So those five elements are the minimum evaluation architecture: criterion, claim, evidence, result, and indicator. But simply including them is not enough. Each one must survive the three extraction gates, as we'll see. The five things you must make sure the LLM finds if you want it to uh, get the information you want it to evaluate. If one of these disappears, the evaluation will be incomplete. We need to make sure the LLM gets all five: criterion, claim, evidence, the result, and the indicator. Let's see how this works. Okay, this thing, the three gates, may sound abstract, but it becomes very concrete when an agent is comparing products. If the system cannot retrieve or interpret a company's own pricing, features, or conditions, well, it will not stop. It may continue searching and allow for a directory, an old article, or a comparison platform to describe your offer instead. It may just hallucinate, uh, and it will always provide an answer. A benchmark involving 100 B2B products were tested exactly for this failure. So the information can be visible in your paper, in your proposal, in your landing page, and still be functionally absent from the AI evaluating it. Being there is not the same as being extractable. The secret here is what I call the free extraction gates. You need to disclose the fact. It must be there, okay? It needs to be there, but you need it to also be extractable. You need the LLM to connect it to the right claim, the right criterion, and extract it. And finally, you need it to be accessible. You need the model to be able to access the content. Your evidence, the information that you're trying to get to the evaluation, the pieces of information that will make your work really shine, really show how important, right, or attractive it is. That information must pass all these three gates. You don't need the LLM to get everything in your text. You need it to extract that vital information. Well, the very same mechanism affects formal documents. In the workshop, I used the real grant proposal example. The original paragraph was not badly written. To a human reader, it described a credible and potential valuable project to a human reader. But it required the evaluator to infer a lot, maybe too much of the structure connecting the problem, the objectives, the activities, and the measurable results. Across 100 B2B products and repeated every task 5 times. So the agents had to find the official website themselves. It had to extract the facts and cite the sources. Pricing and features were the critical point here in any buying process that's normal. So even when a public price existed in the website, The agents sometimes abandon the official website and use a third-party source. And that's one of the main dangers of LLM evaluation. It's hard to make sure it confines itself to your source, to your website, or to your proposal. It often goes out and goes get information on third parties, information you do not control. This is a commercial situation. It's a commercial meaning of extraction failure. The information may be on your landing page, but if the agent cannot reliably extract, trust, and cite it, someone else may actually be defining how the evaluation will go. And why does this happen? Because every fact on your work, on your website, your proposal, every fact must pass these three gates: disclosure, extractability, and accessibility. When the agent cannot reliably extract your answer, someone else will be providing the answer for you. This is something you can find in the literature I put together. So nothing essential was missing from the project itself. The problem, the objectives, the results, they already existed elsewhere in the proposal. The rewrite did not invent new evidence. It restored the relationships between the evidence that the original narrative had left implicit. So it tried to make them explicit for the LLM. This is the transformation we're seeking. What do you think? Do you think this sounds like a weak project? The project will strengthen how higher education institutions implement living labs as curriculum-embedded learning environments, connecting students with employers and local communities. It will provide pedagogical integration, staff capacity, and cooperation with external stakeholders. What do you think about this? Does this sound like a weak project? I'm a human reading this text. For me, it's not a weak project. But if an LLM is reading it, it can miss a lot of information because the problems presented are generic or vague. The measurable objectives are not explicit. The targets and the indicators are just not there. Probably they are in another part of the project, of the proposal, and you're not sure if the LLM will connect them. The causal chain is implied. It's actually not mapped. I mean, for a human, it's easy to see. It's implied, but you need to map it for an LLM. So the impact is positive if you read this, but it's weakly the evidence. You don't have much evidence. So the LLM will not say that the project was bad, but it will construct a weak version of it and present it to the evaluator. That will hurt the evaluation. You have the criterion, that's probably in the call text. You identify the gap, you set the objectives, you choose the activities, you promise the output, and you include in the end the target and the indicators. So you're not actually adding new claims to the first version. You're just restoring the relationships that were already in the project, but you're making them visible for an LLM. We do no need to infer that logic. So after it, you can say that you have three explicit gaps: curricular integration, the institutional capacity and governance, the structure of marketing engagement. You can find measurable targets with indicators: 6 study programs, 10 courses, 40 trained staff, 6 pilots, 150 students, 12 external organizations. It's the same project. It did not change. But what the LLM will extract from this text is going to be different. Now, please notice what did not happen. The project did not become more innovative. The consortium did not become stronger. The new activity or result, no new activity or result was added. What changed was the evaluator's ability to identify the value already in the proposal, assuming the evaluator was an LLM or used an LLM. So the first version required inference, like we often do when we write for humans. The second version made the evaluation architecture much extractable, much easier to extract. So much less implicit, much more explicit. Let me say that if an LLM is assisting evaluation, I'm pretty sure what version would score better. And the thing is, the project did not change. The evidence did not change. But the representation that the LLM is going to give the human evaluator is quite different. Um, the second made value extractable. And if you want your evaluator, whether it's evaluating a proposal for a project or evaluating an academic paper or the purchase of a product or service in your landing page, you want the LLM to extract the value that you are offering. That's what will influence the decision. And you got to make sure that the LLM will extract the value. The thing is, that doesn't happen automatically. So the extraction test is actually a diagnostic. It is not an instruction to obey the model or replace professional judgment with machine judgment. You compare what the model extracted with what you intended the evaluator to understand. The gap between those two versions tells you what needs clarification, what needs improvement. And that leads to an important objection. Does writing for extraction mean flattening your voice, producing repetitive machine prose? That can be a problem if you're wrong and there will be no evaluator, only humans. They'll be bored to death. But no, that's not the idea, as we'll see. Include the evaluation criteria, name how these will be evaluated, and then ask any LLM to extract from your text as it is now, extract the claims, the evidence, the targets, the gaps, tell it not to go outside. That doesn't always work, but try to make it stick to your text. And then read the output and mark anything that is implicit, ambiguous, missing. And most importantly, compare the extraction, what the LLM extracted, with what you wanted it to get, what you want the evaluator to get, to understand, and make sure that you see what differences are there, if any. I'm sure there will be, but because if the LLM cannot extract what you need the evaluator to value, the evaluator will not see it or may not see it. Most people will continue writing as though their work will be read by humans alone. You can make criteria explicit, you can connect claims to evidence, you can test extraction before submission. You can keep, and this is the difficult part, keep the human persuasion without hiding the machine readable value. So writing for LLM evaluation is about clarity, not about manipulation. The advantage is not using more AI. The advantage is controlling what AI extracts from your work. So don't write like a machine. Don't remove your voice. Don't eliminate narrative. don't try to manipulate the algorithm. You know that never works. Like in any casino, the house always wins. Uh, don't use prompt injection and hidden instructions and all those techniques that are changing every day and in the end will not lead us anywhere. Um, the objective is clarity, not manipulation. Writing for LM evaluation is about clarity, not manipulation. Um, the real art here, the real difficulty is to maintain human persuasion in a text that is easily, clearly extractable by LLMs. So what I do is a two-pass writing, if you can call it that. I first write for machines, then I write for humans. I make sure in the first pass that the text includes all the claims, the evidence, the criteria, the targets, the structure in a very easily readable text. And then I try to add a narrative, my own voice. I try to stress what's more relevant. I could create some tension that pleases the human brain in some memorable language. Um, and I try to do this in two passes. First, make the value extractable, whatever work you're doing. Once again, doesn't matter if it's an academic paper or a grant proposal or a marketing copy. You need to make the value extractable and then make it unforgettable. First extractable for machines, then unforgettable for humans. Uh, So we can use this practical rule that's quite simple. First, make the value extractable, then make it unforgettable. The machine needs to identify the criterion, the claim, the evidence, the measurable result, the indicator. The human still needs narrative, relevance, voice, persuasion. So you make it extractable for the machine, and afterwards, you make it unforgettable for the human. The objective is not to write for machines instead of humans. The objective here is to prevent machine mediation from erasing the value that humans should see. The full evidence map, references, limitations, and strategical implications are also available in the PolisDocs issue entitled Your Work is Not Being Judged, Its Machine Version Is. It was published late July. And the link is in the show notes anyway. You will also find information there about how to write for LLM evaluation and the 7-step experience which I developed that lets you test and rewrite one real section of your own work. So this is it. Thank you for listening to InnovU, the U Project Chronicles. This is the end of this season. We'll be back in September. Please subscribe to the podcast and to the newsletter and share everything. Every button available is useful. See you next September.